The white truck that wouldn't leave us alone. It started when I was 16. My best friend and I used to walk home together after school, talking about everything: homework, music, and who we secretly liked. Our route was quiet, lined with trees and the occasional parked car. Safe, or so we thought. One afternoon, a white pickup appeared behind us. At first, it didn't seem like much, but then it slowed down. Not just once, every day after that. Same truck, same driver. A man with a gray beard and sunglasses. He never rolled down his window, never said a word, just followed, close enough to be noticed, far enough to claim coincidence. We told ourselves we were imagining it. We even laughed about it at first, calling him Creepy Claus. But the laughter stopped when the truck started parking near our school gate in the mornings. Sometimes it would be there after dark, headlights off, just idling at the corner. One night, I woke up to the sound of gravel crunching outside my house. Through my blinds, I saw the faint outline of that same truck parked across the street. Engine running, no movement inside, just waiting. That's when my mom called the police. They took it seriously, at least for one night. But when the officers left, the truck came back. Every few days, always just out of reach, always silent. It finally stopped after Christmas. The police found a truck matching that description, abandoned 2 towns over. Inside were disposable phones, rope, duct tape, and photos. Photos of girls, including us, my brother's perfect friend. Everyone loved Ethan. He was smart, charming, the kind of guy parents adored. He was also my older brother's best friend, practically part of our family. He'd join us for dinner, help my mom carry groceries, even walk our dog when my brother couldn't. I was 13 then, and like most younger sisters, I admired him. He made me laugh, listened when no one else did. But over time, small things began to feel off. He'd ask strange questions, like whether I ever walked home alone, or what time my parents got back from work. Once, he complimented my perfume, even though I wasn't wearing any. One afternoon, I got home early from school. The house was quiet, except for footsteps upstairs. I thought it was my brother, but his car wasn't outside. When I called out, the footsteps stopped, and then from the hallway, Ethan appeared. He said he was just dropping something off, but he didn't have anything with him. I tried to act normal, but something in his expression felt wrong, like he was watching me, not looking at me. That night, I told my brother. He laughed it off, said Ethan probably got the wrong house key again. But a week later, my parents caught him trying to open my bedroom window from the outside. He ran before they could stop him. And when the police searched his apartment, they found hundreds of photos, most of them taken from inside people's homes. He had been breaking in for months. Ours was just next on the list. The stranger who knew my schedule. It was around the time I started working late shifts at a small grocery store. The kind of place where regulars know your name and every creak in the floor feels familiar. I worked the closing shift, usually finishing around midnight. At first, it was routine. Clean up, lock up, catch the last bus. Until one night, I noticed a man standing by the entrance long after the store closed. He wasn't buying anything. He wasn't talking to anyone. He just stood there, facing the glass, as if waiting for me. The next night, he was there again. And the night after that. Always the same distance away, like he was rehearsing something. Eventually, he started waving. Not a friendly wave, more like a slow acknowledgement, a signal that said, "I see you." I stopped taking the bus after that, and asked my coworker to give me rides home. Then came the notes. At first, they were left under the register. Scraps of paper with harmless words like nice hair or you look tired today. But soon, they turned specific. He mentioned the exact time I got off the bus, the color of my jacket, even what aisle I'd stalked last. One night, after everyone had left, I heard the door chime. It was locked, I was sure of it. But when I turned around, he was inside. He smiled like we knew each other, said he'd been watching me to make sure I got home safe. He reached into his pocket, and I ran. By the time police arrived, he was gone. They never found him, but every now and then, when I walk past a store window at night, I can still feel eyes on me, like he's out there, waiting for another shift to end. The room I shouldn't have rented. When I first moved out, I didn't have much money, so I rented a room in a shared house. Old place, creaky floors, mismatched locks. My roommate was an older man named Carl. Quiet, polite, maybe too polite. The first week was fine. He mostly stayed in his room. But late at night, I'd hear the floorboards creak outside my door. Slow, deliberate steps that stopped whenever I turned on the light. Once, I caught him staring at me through the kitchen window after midnight. He said he was checking the locks, but the back door was on the other side of the house. A few days later, I found a small hole drilled in my bedroom wall, right near my bed, hidden behind a picture frame. I packed that night, didn't even wait until morning. A month later, the police contacted me. Carl had been arrested in another town. He'd installed hidden cameras in several rental rooms. Some pointed at beds, others at bathrooms. When they searched his laptop, they found hundreds of videos. I still wonder if I'm in one of them. The neighbor who never slept. When I first moved into my apartment complex, I thought I'd lucked out. It was quiet, affordable, and close to work. But then I met the man in 2B. Everyone just called him Mr. Lane. He looked harmless, mid-40s, glasses, always wearing the same faded jacket. But he had this habit of standing outside at night, staring at the hallway lights, like he was waiting for them to go out. At first, I thought he was just eccentric. But one evening, I caught him watching my door peephole, just standing there, breathing quietly, inches away. I called out, and he didn't move, didn't answer, just stood there for what felt like a full minute before walking away. After that, weird things started happening. My mail went missing. My doormat was turned upside down. Once, I came home to find my lock slightly scratched, like someone had tried to pick it. The final straw came one night when I woke up to the sound of my living room window sliding open. When I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, I caught him halfway inside. He froze, smiled, and whispered, "You left it unlocked." He ran when I screamed, but police didn't find him. Management changed the locks, installed cameras, and told me I was safe. 2 months later, a tenant in another building was attacked in her sleep. They found Mr. Lane's jacket outside her window. The Christmas shift I'll never forget. Last Christmas Eve, I was working the overnight shift at a small gas station just off the highway. It was snowing, silent, the kind of night where even headlights looked ghostly through the fog. Around 2 a.m., a man walked in. He wore a thick winter coat, hood up, face half covered. He didn't speak, just placed a crumpled dollar on the counter and stared. I asked if he needed anything. No response. Then, slowly, he looked at the security camera, pointed up at it, and said quietly, "Do you ever check the ones outside?" Something about his tone made my stomach twist. When he left, I locked the door and pulled up the monitor feed. In the grainy footage, I saw him standing by the gas pumps, staring toward the highway. But behind him, barely visible through the falling snow, was another figure, still, watching him. When I looked up from the screen, both were gone. The next morning, police found a burned-out car a few miles down the road. Inside were two bodies, one matching his description. The other was never identified. I quit that job the next day. But every Christmas Eve, I still wake up at 2 a.m. And sometimes, I swear I can hear the door chime ring again. This Christmas, I quit. If you've ever worked alone at night, lived with strangers, or walked home under a streetlight that suddenly flickered, you know that fear doesn't always come from shadows. Sometimes, it comes from what's standing right in front of you. So this Christmas, I'm done chasing normal. Done pretending everything's fine. Because the truth is, once you've seen what's out there, you can't unsee it. Stay alert, stay safe, and trust your instincts before someone else learns them first. The paranoid father. I used to think my dad was just overly cautious. He'd double-check every lock, every window, and even the basement door, twice. He said it was for our safety. When I was a kid, that seemed normal. Every night, he'd walk through the house with a flashlight, making sure no one had broken in. He kept a baseball bat by the bed and a camera pointed at the front yard, an old, bulky camcorder hooked up to a tiny TV. But it wasn't until years later that I realized something was wrong. One night, I woke up to the sound of my dad whispering in the hallway. I thought he was on the phone, but he wasn't holding anything. He was standing completely still, whispering into the dark. I asked who he was talking to. He jumped, startled, then told me to go back to bed. I remember his exact words. They listen when we speak too loud. After that, he started sleeping in the living room. Said it gave him a better view of the front door. He installed more locks, boarded up one of the windows, and left the TV on static all night. A few weeks later, I came home from school to find the front door wide open. Inside, the house was silent. My dad's camcorder was on the floor, still recording. On the screen, I could see him pacing back and forth, whispering the same phrase over and over. I know you're here. I know you're here. He was never found. The police searched for months, but the only clue they had was the last few seconds of that tape. A faint voice replying, "Finally." The backyard window incident. When I was 12, we moved into a quiet neighborhood. Our new house had a big backyard, lined with old oak trees that blocked most of the moonlight. My bedroom window faced the back fence. At night, I used to stare outside and watch the shadows sway in the wind. Until one night, something stared back. It was subtle at first, a faint shape just beyond the tree line. I thought it was a trick of the light, but it didn't move like the shadows. It stood still, watching. Every night after that, I'd see it again, the same outline. Sometimes closer, sometimes gone for days, but always there. One evening, I told my mom about it. She laughed, said I had an overactive imagination. But later that night, I woke up to the sound of tapping. Soft, rhythmic tapping, coming from my window. When I looked, there were handprints on the glass, small, smeared, as if someone had pressed their palms against it, then slid them downward. We called the police. They searched the yard, found footprints leading toward the woods, but never back. They told us it was probably some local kid playing a prank. A few weeks later, the neighbor's dog disappeared. Then another family down the street reported someone standing in their backyard at night, always just watching. We moved out that summer. Sometimes I still dream about that window and the faint reflection of eyes staring through it. The deep sea expedition. I've worked on ocean research vessels for most of my career. It's a lonely kind of life. Long weeks at sea, surrounded by nothing but dark water and the hum of engines. But one trip in particular still keeps me up at night. We were off the coast of Alaska, charting a deep-sea trench that had barely been explored. Our sonar picked up something strange, a massive cavern far below, deeper than any of our readings had ever shown. We sent down a small submersible, just a camera on a steel cable. At first, we saw nothing but silt and black water. Then, as the lights adjusted, the feed flickered, and something moved. It was huge, a shadow gliding past the camera, fast, but unmistakably alive. Not a fish, not a whale, something with shape, deliberate movement, like it was circling the light. Then the cable snapped. The camera dropped into the darkness, still recording static. Our instruments began to flicker, and the sonar started picking up multiple echoes, surrounding us. We pulled anchor immediately. By morning, the ocean was calm again, as if nothing had happened. But later, when we reviewed the footage, we saw something that froze us all. In the final 2 seconds before the feed cut off, the light caught a surface, pale, smooth, and curved. It wasn't rock. It looked like a face, a massive one, pressed against the lens, eyes open, as if staring back. We never went back to that trench. And a few months later, the coordinates were quietly removed from the public database. The paramedic's secret. I used to work as an EMT in a small town. Most calls were routine. Car crashes, heart attacks, the occasional overdose. But one night, we got a dispatch that still haunts me. A 911 call had come from an abandoned property outside town, a house that had burned down years ago. The line was faint, filled with static, but a voice whispered, "Help me, please." When we arrived, the house was nothing but a blackened frame. No lights, no power, just the faint smell of ash. We called out, expecting it to be a prank. Then we heard it again, the same weak voice coming from the basement. We forced the door open and went down. There was nothing but old debris and a single metal stretcher in the center of the room, the kind hospitals stopped using decades ago, and lying on it was a body, pale, half covered by a sheet, like someone had just placed it there, except it was cold, long dead. The name tag on its wrist was barely legible, but when I turned to ask if it was a joke, but my partner wasn't beside me anymore. Just the radio, hissing softly. When I climbed back up, the ambulance door was wide open, lights still flashing, but the driver's seat was empty. They never found him. Dispatch said the call had been traced, not to the old house, but to our own ambulance phone, the one my partner was using that night. The creep in the woods. I grew up near a small town surrounded by dense forest, the kind where sunlight barely reaches the ground. Everyone knew the trails, but no one stayed past sunset. Not after what happened to the hikers a few years back. One summer, I took a job with the local park service. Mostly routine stuff, clearing branches, marking paths, checking signs. But one afternoon, I found something odd. A tent, hidden deep off trail. It wasn't abandoned. The fire was still warm, and there was food inside. But there were no footprints around it. Not one. I called out, thinking maybe someone had gone to the creek nearby. No answer. Just wind and the distant creak of trees. Then I noticed the photos pinned to a rope inside the tent. Dozens of them, all taken at night. And every single one showed hikers sleeping in their tents. I flipped through them in disbelief. Some faces I recognized, regular campers who visited the park. But then I froze. The last few photos were of me, taken from outside my cabin window. That night, I didn't sleep. I locked the door, shut the blinds, and waited. Just before dawn, I heard the crunch of footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate. Then a whisper through the wall. "You shouldn't have found those." When I opened the door, the tent was gone. Everything, the rope, the photos, even the ashes of the fire vanished. I quit the next morning, but sometimes when I walk near the tree line, I still see flashes, faint camera light, deep among the shadows. A man in the dark. I used to rent a basement apartment below an old couple's house. It was small but cozy, one window, low ceiling, concrete walls that stayed cold even in summer. At first, I liked the quiet, until I realized I wasn't alone down there. It started with footsteps, faint, slow steps that echoed from the far corner of the basement, near the storage room. When I checked, the lights would flicker, and everything would be still again. Then small things began to move. The broom, my laundry basket. Once I found my toothbrush wedged into the wall, bristles crushed flat, as if someone had pressed it there. I told the owners upstairs, but they insisted no one else had a key. They said the last tenant left in a hurry, but wouldn't explain why. One night, I woke up to the sound of my closet door creaking open. Slowly, I reached for my phone to use the flashlight, but before I could turn it on, a voice whispered, "Don't." I froze. The air felt heavy, colder than before. I waited, not moving, not breathing. And then, I heard breathing right next to me. I ran outside barefoot, didn't even grab my things. The next morning, when I came back with a friend, we found the closet door wide open. Inside, on the wall, someone had written a single word in dust. Stay. The desolate highway. I drive long-haul freight across the country, mostly night routes. If you've ever done it, you know how empty those roads can feel at 2 or 3 a.m. The silence out there doesn't just surround you, it seeps in. This one night, I was heading west through a stretch of highway in Nevada. No lights, no cars, nothing but desert. The CB radio had been quiet for hours, and even the GPS signal was cutting out. Around 3:15, I saw someone on the shoulder, a man standing beside an old car with the hood open. I slowed down. I've been that guy before, stranded and desperate. When I pulled over, he waved. He was wearing a dark coat and a cap pulled low. Said his car died and he just needed a lift to the next gas station. I told him to hop in. At first, it was normal. He thanked me, said he'd been out there a long time. But after a few minutes, I realized he wasn't wearing a seatbelt and he hadn't shut the door properly. It hung slightly open, wind howling through the crack. I asked if he was cold. He smiled, a long, too wide grin, and said, "Not anymore." That's when I noticed the smell, like burnt metal and gasoline, and the fact that he hadn't blinked once. A few minutes later, I looked in the mirror, and he was gone. The passenger seat was empty, door still slightly open, swinging against the wind. When I stopped at the next station, I told the clerk what happened. He just stared at me, then walked to the back and came out with a yellowed newspaper clipping. It was dated 5 years earlier. A man, same description, had died in a car fire on that exact stretch of highway. I still drive nights, and sometimes, when I check the mirror, I swear I can see the passenger door swing open again, waiting. People like to think horror comes from stories, things we make up to scare ourselves. But the truth is, horror starts small. A sound in the hallway, a shadow that doesn't move quite right, a voice that says your name when you're alone. Because every one of these stories, at some point, started with someone saying, "It's probably nothing."